Okay, so this has been a highly requested review. This is the relatively cheap and fast lens by SVBony that can be used up to full frame. It's called the SV555 and it is a 54mm aperture lens with a focal length of 244mm for a focal ratio of f4.5, so it's even faster than something like the RedCat 51. And it promises really good star shapes across the field of view, including on a full-frame sensor. So of course, in this video, I'm going to put that to the test. The lens itself, by the way, is, I believe, $660, so it is cheaper than the RedCat 51 by a lot, and it's even cheaper than the SQA55 by Sharpstar. So it is the budget option out there. Let's have a look at how it looks like. And if we look at the packaging, we get a user manual. We get some lens ring, we get a lens spacer for if you want to use it with an EAF, because it provides all that you need to use it with a ZW EAF, including the timing belt and the timing pulley. And we'll look at that in a moment. You get screws and wrenches to install everything. And you have the lens itself, which comes in this protective bag, within another protective bag, and here is the lens. It reminds me of those old like Russian lenses. It's nice and compact and a bit like brutalist, if you see what I mean. But anyway, we have the lens. We have at the end of the lens there is a rotator that is very smooth to be able to rotate the sensor with respect to the lens itself, and the rotator has some gradations, but not to the degree level like you would have on a Sharpstar or Askar telescope. We also have here the focusing ring, and the focusing ring is very smooth and very nice to use, but it's only one focusing ring, a coarse focusing ring. There is no fine focusing ring. So I'll show you a bit later how the setup looks like and how I focused it manually, because I wanted to use that manually as well to show you how it works. And then at the very top, we have an aperture ring. This is because the lens can be used wide open at f4.5 all the way down to f22. And so this is how it looks like. It's a very smooth system. There's no hard stops, or like there's no click stops, let's say, as there were on the SQA55, for instance. I personally used it only at f4.5 because I want the fastest possible optics for astrophotography, and I want to see how well it's going to perform wide open. Are we okay with using it wide open? At the back, in my case, I have M48 threads, and I have installed, you might see the reflections inside, a UV IR cut filter inside as well, because you can, but you do need to remove those 4 screws at the top to be able to get access to it. We also get, by the way, a dust cap, like a standard lens type of dust cap. This can be used as a normal terrestrial photography lens, obviously. And once I remove the 4 screws at the back, I can remove that, and you can see we have the slot for the filter where I have installed it. So each time you want to add or remove a filter without using a filter drawer, then you need to remove those 4 screws. Obviously, it's just easier to use a filter drawer. By the way, quick word, this is something that I forgot to mention. This is a Petzval design, meaning that the back focus, the distance between the lens flange and your camera sensor, doesn't really matter. For me, I use the usual adapters that I have that give me the standard 55mm of back focus. If you're using a DSLR and you'll be using a T-ring, for instance, you'll have 55mm of back focus by default. And most cooled astrophotography cameras come with the adapters to achieve 55mm of back focus, so you might as well use that. By the way, we still have a couple of more things hidden in the box. We have a finder shoe / guide scope shoe. We have an ZW EAF adapter for focusing using the belt, the timing belt and timing pulley that I showed you earlier. And then we have a red dovetail plate. And so for a manual focus configuration, it's pretty easy to set things up. So you would take your dovetail plate, align your telescope ring, put some screws in there. And once it's done, you have your lens ring, which you can open and slide the lens in. Pop. This is how it looks like with the dovetail plate. And with 4 more screws, we can add the finder dovetail. And now we are ready basically to image with this telescope. I'll show you also later how it looks like with the EF installed and how you install the EF. And I'll also show you the test setup using both an APS-C size camera and a full frame camera so we can test the star shapes across the field of view. So for now, what you're seeing is a pretty a fun looking lens that is f4.5, 244 millimeters of focal length, 55 millimeters of back focus. It has a rotator, it has a focus ring. It can be used, but let's use it under the stars and let me show you the setup. By the way, I got this lens directly from SVBony on loan. I will be sending it back to them after this review is done. So here is my test setup with the SV555, just like for other refractor reviews that I'm doing at this stage. I'm using the ZW ASI 2600 MC Air, which has an APS-C size sensor as an initial test. And it also has pixels that are 3.7 micrometers, I believe. So it helps us see if there are any star aberrations. I also intentionally, for now, did not set up any electronic focuser because I wanted to see how well I could shift the focus for precise focusing. And of course, for that, I used Luke from the Lucomatico YouTube channel, the universal Batinov mask that I can place on top to achieve perfect focus. I don't need to 3D print my own Batinov masks anymore. And I'll have the link to that universal mask down in the description. And then once I'm done with this camera, I go for this full frame Toptech Sky Eye 24AC camera, which is again full frame. It has larger pixels at 6 microns or 5.9 microns. So it's less good to really see all of the aberrations, but we can still have a view of how this lens or telescope is going to perform on the full frame in the corners of that huge sensor area. And talking a bit about the focus, it's a very smooth focus ring as expected, but it is a coarse focusing. So it's difficult to really get perfect focus just manually. It's doable, but you really have to be small moves. And my technique is really to tighten the knob a little bit so I have some tension in the focuser and I can do small tiny movements until I get my perfect Batinov diffraction spike. So it is usable manually, but it's not as good as something I reviewed recently, the SQA55 with its dual focuser system. And so if you get this lens, since it comes with the accessories needed to add an electronic focuser, I would absolutely recommend doing that. So let's actually do that so I can show you how that looks like in the end. The way that this works is you have your dovetail and you have the extender really. You can just plop it onto the dovetail, align the holes, and then on top of it, you'll take your lens ring effectively and just put it in there. You can use 2 massive screws that are provided to really put everything together. Then there's this dark angled plate that is provided together with those 2 screws here and there that are also provided. I can install on the ZWEF before I use 2 other screws to actually put it on the dovetail plate at the bottom. Then I can install the pulley on the EF. I can place back the lens in the lens ring, remove the locking knob on the focusing ring, and then I can place the timing belt all the way to the focusing ring. It fits perfectly. I also place it about the pulley there, and then I can tighten everything and have basically I can use the screws that I have here to adjust the tension on the focuser. And here we go. It's all done and I'm able to use that. It works very well actually in terms of focusing. So it's good to have that directly provided with the telescope so you don't need to buy anything separately and you can directly use your ZW EAF to do autofocus. But with that, how does this perform under the stars for both the APS-C size sensor and the massive full frame sensor as well? I've already used each camera and for each I took 60 seconds exposure on Deneb, which has a nice star field, and I'll show you the individual exposures as well as a stack, because sometimes a stack can reveal optical issues that are not obvious with just a single frame. So let's go inside to check this out, but before we do that, let me know in the comments how you think this relatively cheap lens will perform on the full frame sensor. Leave a like on the video, it takes 1 second, it really helps the channel out. And if you want to help the channel out even more and you're planning on buying anything from SVBony like this lens, I'll have a link down in the the description, probably with a coupon code as well that you can use, or from Amazon, Agena, High Point Scientific, etc. If you do so after clicking the links that I have in the description, it helps me out at no cost to you. Of course, if you're new to the channel and you like this kind of honest review, you may consider subscribing, or if you want to sponsor this channel directly and make it possible, you can join my channel as a member. It's the join button next to the subscribe button, or you can become a Patreon supporter using the link that I have down in the description. Okay, let's get inside and look at the actual results. Okay, so with this SV555 lens, let's have a look first at the field of view that are covered by various sensors. We'll also have a look at the spot diagrams compared to something like the RedCat 51 or the Askar SQA55, which are the two closest competitors, I would say, to this lens. And then we'll look at the actual results under the stars. So first, the field of views. So you can see this is on M31, large object, Andromeda galaxy. And I have in red at the very center, this is the 585 MC Pro, so with a 585 sensor. Then in yellow, we have the 533 sensor. Then in green, we have the 294 sensor, so this is a micro four thirds. Then in blue, we have APS-C size sensor, so this is the test camera that I was using, the 2600 MC Air. And then you have the purple one, which is an insane field of view. This is a full frame sensor. This is basically the same as the Toptech Sky i24AC camera that I also use for those tests. So this should give you a good idea of the amount of zoom, or in a way, lack thereof, that you get with this lens. It is made for extended objects, although if you use it with the 585 MC Pro, you do have some relatively small pixels of 2.9 microns, and in that case you get 2.45 arc seconds per pixel. So in pretty much every circumstance with this kind of lens you will be undersampled, but that's not a big deal because you get a huge nice wide field to play with. It is great for extended nebulae, for instance. But it's definitely not something that's made to capture small planetary nebulae. I mean, I wouldn't go for like the Crab Nebula with that, for instance. Now let's have a quick look as well at the spot diagram, which is basically the image of what a perfect star would look like on your sensor at various distances from the center of your camera sensor. And so at the center, you'd be seeing this kind of image. Then at 3 millimeters away from the center, you see that. 7 millimeters away, you see that. 14 millimeters away, you see that. And then 22 millimeters away, which is full frame, you see that. And the scale is, all of that is 100 microns. So these four squares in the middle are basically 20 per 20 microns. And we can see that overall the star shapes throughout the range are very well controlled. They start getting a bit oblong only when you get to the full frame sensor. And the average size, I would say, is roughly like 8 microns radius for each of the stars. So that's a very good result, very decent. Compared to something like the RedCat spot diagram, where we have the same scale, but you can see even at the center of the field of view, we're already at a radius that's probably around 9 microns. The RedCat definitely has the disadvantage while being far more expensive at the same time. And we can see also the star shapes at just 10 millimeters. This starts to be kind of not great, oblong. At 15 millimeters, they're even more oblong, and you can see the radius, the maximum radius of the star is now above 10 microns. And then the stars get quite fat at 21.6 millimeters. So we can see that the RedCat, on paper at least, with the spot diagram, does not have awesome results. Now, if we compare to the SQA55 from Askar, then we see again a similar spot diagram, but the scale is a bit different. That said, the radius of the star at the center of the field of view is 2.5 microns, and at the edge of the field of view of a full frame sensor here, the max radius is apparently around 4 microns. So on paper, the SQA55 beats both the SV555 a little bit, and then the RedCat 51 by a lot. At least those are the results on paper. How does the SV555 perform in real life? So on the screen on the left, we have the results with the APS-C size sensor. This is a single 60 seconds exposure using this lens. And we can look at the center of the field of view. We see very round stars. We can go to the sides and the corners of the field of view, and yeah, maybe the stars are slightly oblong here. Let's go to the bottom right. Yeah, I mean, they're still pretty round as far as I can tell. Let's see the bottom left. Yeah, still very, very round, and I don't see much, if any, chromatic aberration. Let's go to the top left. Yeah, I mean, still very, very round and no obvious defects that I can see. So yeah, on the APS-C size sensor, it seems that at least my sample is performing extremely well on this single exposure. Okay, but what about a stack of 1 hour worth of those 60-second exposures? This is what we get with a stack. We can again go to the center. We have very nice round stars, no obvious defect that I can see. If I go to the right-hand side of the sensor, we do get some maybe slightly oblong star, especially if I go to the top right corner, but still extremely round. Then to the bottom right corner, still extremely round. To the bottom left corner, same story. And to the top left corner, again, same story. This is extremely well controlled stars across the field of view of the APS-C size sensor. And no, I did not do any flats or any bias frames. This is completely uncalibrated. And if we open up an aberration inspector, I mean, this is honestly pretty excellent. I don't see any issues at all with an APS-C size sensor. Okay, so that's for APS-C. What about full frame? Okay, so here we have a single frame of 60 seconds on my full frame sensor, and it has bigger pixels, right? So the stars appear more pixelated. It is what it is. We are severely undersampled with that particular camera. But again, the stars looks perfectly fine. If I go to the right-hand side on the full frame sensor, they still look perfectly fine. Top right corner, slightly elongated, but perfectly fine. Bottom right corner, same story. I mean, I don't even see the elongation. If we go through the bottom of the image and we go to the bottom left, yeah, maybe slightly elongated, not a big deal. Still excellent results. Let's look at the stacked image, see if we've missed anything that might have been missed with a single exposure. Okay, this is a stack image. We're looking at the center. Yeah, the stars are fine. On the right, the stars are fine. Top right, slightly elongated with maybe a little bit of aberration, but this is on the full frame sensor. Bottom right, they're round. Bottom, they're round. Bottom left, they're round. Left, they're still round. Top left, they're still round. I mean, again, this is without any calibration on the full frame sensor. And you know, I didn't have to play with tilt or anything like that. I just screwed the darn camera in and that's it in both cases. And we get such really good results out of the box. Nothing to do. And if we compare to my RedCat 51, this is with an APS-C size sensor. It has the RedCat 51. Huh? We're no longer on the SVBony SV555. This is the RedCat 51, one of the main competitors. And this is on an APS-C size sensor. And you can see already on the corners of APS-C, we see comets, 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 and comets. Right? I mean, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's simply not as good as what the cheaper, considerably cheaper SV555 gives us. So yeah. And also with the SV555, I pointed it at the Pleaides and I made it run for the night. Unfortunately, clouds rudely interrupted, so I have only 74 60 seconds frames, so a bit above 1 hour of data on the Pleaides, but it's a good example to show like the wide field of view that we get. And this is the result on the Pleaides for just a bit above 1 hour of data from my Tokyo rooftop balcony. And yeah, we get those nice star shapes throughout the field of view, just like we saw earlier. Although I do see more like spiking coming from the stars, and I think the star shapes are maybe slightly less good than I saw earlier, so that could be something to keep in mind, but it's still plenty good. No problem whatsoever. So obviously I did a 5-minute processing on it, Graxpert to remove the background, then spectrophotometric color calibration, then blur exterminator, noise exterminator, stretching the image, removing the stars, doing some curves, doing some more noise exterminator, and then putting back the stars for the final image. So this is 1 hour of data from Tokyo on the Pleaides using that little f4.5 lens not half bad, and I really like the overall field of view that we get. This is APS-C size sensor, just to be clear. So yeah, it is a massive field of view with just APS-C size. I can't even imagine what it would be with a full frame sensor. I mean, for the price of $660 US, and very often it's on sale, and I'll likely have a coupon for you down in the description if you buy from SVBony directly. This is an excellent value. It is not the best small refractor that I have ever used. This is still the SQF55, but it is considerably cheaper than the SQF55. And the only reason the SQF55 beats it would be maybe the stars are slightly tighter as per the spot diagram, but also simply they have the fine focus ring, which is good for manual use. And they have some more quality of life stuff. It's easier to change the filter. I don't need to mess with 4 screws on the Askar. It's easier to remove the top dovetail plate for the guider on the Askar. There's some cool quality of life features that are available that make it a better overall package, but then it's also more expensive, significantly more expensive. The SVBony is really, as far as I can tell, like the budget king of small refractors with a Pleaides valve design right now. If you're looking for a small refractor that is out of the box, easy to use, you don't want to mess with anything, you just want to use your camera as is, and you have a large sensor like APS-C or full frame, and you want those large field of views on those nebulae, that kind of stuff, honestly, on a budget, the SV555 is a no-brainer, like complete no-brainer. If you have a bit more money, then the SQF55 is slightly superior. So you might as well go for it. And if you have even more money than that, you could buy the RedCat 51, but don't. I don't see any reason why you would buy the RedCat 51 when you have the Askar SQF55 and this SVBony SV555 available. But let me know if I'm completely wrong there and I'm missing something obvious, but to me it feels like the RedCat, as it is, has been vastly outclassed by cheaper alternatives, including this SV555 lens. And based on my tests of it, I highly recommend it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Am I missing something? I'm really happy to see such choices on the market, but I really want to know if I'm missing something. Let me know what you think of those results. Would you be interested in buying this, or are you sick of small Pleaides valve refractors because there's too many on the market? I'd love to hear your opinion. While you're at it, you may like the video. It really helps the channel out, and it takes 1 second. If you're new to the channel and you like this kind of review, you may consider subscribing. And if you want to support the channel at no cost to you and you're planning on buying anything from SVBony, like this refractor, link is down in the description, or Amazon, High Point Scientific, Agena, Astro, etc. If you do so after clicking the links I have down in the description, it helps me out at no cost to you. If you want to help sponsor the channel and make this channel and all of the work that goes behind it possible, you can become a channel member using the join button next to the subscribe button, or you can become a Patreon supporter. The link is down in the description. Some of my Patreon member ranks have access to my videos early and without ads. With that, I'll look forward to your comments. I hope this was a useful video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, whenever you can, to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.